together and talk about the things that matter. Now, the show is broadcasting from 1714 East 7th Street in Ybor City, where it all began. I'm at home, so I get to not wear pants today, which is fantastic. And I'm not going to show you because you can just use your imagination. But let's just say that this time I'm going to jump without getting up into the rotation. Good afternoon. It is the late morning, early afternoon of the last Sunday of January. I don't know where it went. It started and then now it's gone. And we hardly even celebrated January 6th. Isn't that something?
Well, wasn't much to celebrate when there, but this weekend, Gasparilla just kicked off in Tampa. So for those folks who are not Tampa natives, understand every year we have a celebration where some pirates threatened the city a few hundred years ago, during the age of piracy, and they executed those pirates. And we have a big parade every single year. Where the city elite dress up like pirates and get smashed. And the streets here in Ybor, Gary, if you could see, they are trashed, man. I mean, there's like 4 or 5 pizza boxes just outside the headquarters right now where we're broadcasting from. And there's it looks like I don't know if folks ever been to Mardi Gras, but Bourbon Street in 7th Avenue right now are giving a good run for their money for each other.
Now I can tell you, I lived in New Orleans for a couple of years. That come midnight on Tuesday, when the bells hit and it suddenly becomes Ash Wednesday, they bring out the big equipment and they push tons and tons of garbage out of the way. They hose down the streets, get all that nice urine smell and beer smell out, and all of a sudden it's a holy city again. So they do a damn good job of cleaning up. Ybor, well, they have a couple guys with orange jumpsuits occasionally coming by and picking stuff up. Everybody else is now ticketing cars that are still parked there from last night because they couldn't get to their cars.
Oh, if they didn't tow them already, in Ybor, there's hardly any free parking anymore. You got to pay for everything. Everything's been essentially privatized, and even the cleanup crews. We were commenting this morning that has been privatized. There's less, city jobs, and we're as taxpayers we're paying these private companies, and like. Hey, this is wild to see, how trashed everything is. I would expect them to do a better job or have it, more together. I've seen, parades come and go for many years. I've never seen the city this trashed.
Well, for those people who don't know, the parade itself it goes along the waterfront in South Tampa, which is actually a more elite neighborhood because, face it, waterfront property always at a premium.
Yeah, the parade was not in Ybor, and Ybor is trashed right now. I can't believe what the night parade is going to look like in 2 weeks, because that's where the fun really happens. So
if only we had a city council that cared more about the way that the Tampa looks.
Well, I think in general, all of city government needs to care more about its citizens, and how it needs to be more responsive to people's needs, from the mayor's office to the council's office to the folks that are, appointed and hired to help run the government, to our police departments, which, need more accountability. And we're seeing a push in the opposite direction here in Florida, here in Tampa, when it comes to accountability, to justice, to civil rights, to decency as human beings. And, Florida is only one of 19 states left that still jails people for cannabis possession. And here in Tampa, Carlos, myself, other members of Normal and in the local community came out in 2015, 2016 and worked with the council to pass a civil citation ordinance that gave the police discretion to write a ticket for $75. You have 20 grams or less. But even still, that only works if you have folks who are willing to follow it, enforce it, to utilize it as necessary as a tool. And that's not what we're getting in a lot of ways. I mean, Gary, you were talking to me the other day about an experience that someone close to you had where they essentially were lied on and said they had more money. I mean, more on them than, that 20 gram limit, that misdemeanor to felony threshold. That's what happened to me as well. So when you have people who are dishonest, who are enforcing our law, that have these motivations to try and bump up, if you will, and knock up charges to make it look good on the docket, to make it look like
Well, I read the arrest report, and it does say that the cannabis was weighed with the container.
with
It
the
doesn't say they teared the container.
yeah,
It says it was weighed with the container, and
yep,
that
the
was a
same,
huge problem before we even got started with this program. And
yeah.
people were walking around with tinctures all the time because a glass bottle with a dropper weighs a hell of a lot more than the tincture inside, and yet that's enough to cause you to trigger a felony.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
wow.
with these issues being so important, we highlight, we often talk about federal issues and the fact that cannabis is still legal Schedule 1. We'll talk about state issues and the issues we have, but very rarely do we get the chance to talk about local issues. And because we think just because we got the decrim ordinance, things are done. And people think once we legalize cannabis in the state of Florida for adult use, the mission's done. People think once the becomes legal federally, the mission is done. And the fact is, our mission here at Suncoast Normal is to advocate and protect for cannabis users and their rights, responsible cannabis users, and their right to safe access and to live a healthy life. I mean, of the American values of our organization, we are a civil rights organization at our core, and we have been since 1970, since our founding. And the fact is that the civil rights of Americans has been trampled on by every level of our government since 1970, since the Controlled Substance Act has gone into effect. We've had the proof coming out of the Nixon administration of why they pushed for cannabis Schedule 1 to directly assault their political allies. Adversaries, which were of course the anti-war left, black leaders in the civil rights movement, and so cannabis has, in the way it's been enforced since the 80s, since the Reagan administration and the crack epidemic, they've utilized cannabis possession as a way to become a gateway charge and a gateway into incarceration and into this system of criminal justice exploitation in the industrial complex that it is. And so it's, important for us when we talk about local politics to have people running for office who understand how these systems all interact, because your life is most affected by the people at the local level of government. But if they don't have a comprehension of how the greater system interacts and how our system works, it'll be difficult to navigate the waters of actually effectively governing and represent the people. So today we have a special guest on the show who is a dear longtime dear friend of mine, and a colleague I've had the opportunity to work with, and now I'm so excited to see is running for Tampa City Council, Robin Lockett. Welcome, Robin.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm glad to be here and very curious to have great conversations about everything that's in there.
Yeah, well, headquarters has really become a center of the culture since Carlos opened it up, giving folks a safe space to come and get educated. There's education materials all over the wall. As you can see, they don't sell, like cigarettes here.
Hmm.
So, this is a place where, they don't sell poison. trying to
Hmm.
trying to help people get medicated. There's an amazing case here of products for people's pets and such. I remember my mom's own dog had
Oh,
a
really?
skin cancer growing on his face, and I bought one of these medical cannabis salves from Carlos's place here. It's got the CBD for dogs in it, and the cancer fell right off the dog's face after a few months of putting it
Really?
on. Yeah. And then, some people have dogs with epilepsy and such, so they got little tinctures and stuff here, and different oils you can come get your pets. So it's pretty cool here at Chilla. So
So it's interesting, and I do want to learn more about it. My son, both my kids, they can I say smoke?
yeah,
Okay.
you,
So yeah, they entertain.
this is not censored in any way. We are not to any type of FTC regulations, but we are broadcasting now live on YouTube, Twitch,
Oh, okay.
Periscope on Twitter, as well as Facebook Live. So
FCC.
They often tell me that I need to eat a, is it a chewable? Edible.
edibles.
Yeah, Mama, you need to eat a edible. Don't know how I would react because I've never smoked, but I see so many people that engage it for one reason or another. A lot of health issues,
Yeah.
and that's amazing to me. Just how it has been able to be dissected and created over and over again to really help. So I'm very interested in learning more.
Well, just this past week, the reason I'm actually in town here, in Tampa, is the opportunity to take a break. One from my work in DC, but St. Pete College, um, uh, the West Community Library at St. Pete College, has a program where every month they have guest speakers and such, and they asked me to be the guest speaker this month,
Oh,
and we had a seminar on the health benefits of medical marijuana, and there were a lot of folks, really older folks. I think the average age in the crowd had to be above 55,
wow.
and they were curious. They had questions, and one of the biggest things was folks didn't like the fact that our current medical system is not covered by insurance,
Hmm.
and that they were going to have to pay anywhere upwards of $300 for a doctor's recommendation. And so, there were actually some gentlemen in the back of the audience who were collecting petitions for the Smart and Safe Florida Amendment, which is the amendment for adult use in this state that's
Oh,
currently being
wow.
circulated.
And I think something needs to be done because greed takes over everything, right? Something as simple as marijuana that grows from the earth, as you know,
Mhm.
and greed with people trying to regulate and take control over it. I think that is bad.
Well, it was interesting enough to me. My work up in the DC area is as like states like Maryland and Virginia have legalized. There's the implementation process that comes afterwards, and I remember the implementation process here in Florida, and how they even had to have a special session to actually address it and get to
Right,
it, and how messy it's been.
right,
Initially they only allowed the original 5 licenses
right.
that were dished out for CBD cells, and being vertically integrated, the fact that you had to have a nursery license for 30 contiguous years,
Years.
boxed out black farmers
Yeah,
out of the
yeah.
entire industry. Then we've had lawsuits time and time again about the unfairness of the process from every level, not just from black farmers, but local folks like Joe Redner here in Tampa. And then the DeSantis administration during the entire last 4 years has said, "Oh, well, these court cases are the reason we're not going to issue out more licenses." And so we're about 25 licenses behind in this state.
Wow.
And think about if we had 25 more, dispensaries, if we had ones that were accessible to mom and pop shops, boutique operations, places that really pride themselves on quality rather than quantity, rather than, like you said, greed and sales and the bottom
Mhm.
line, we could have a robust system that really produce quality medicine here in Florida. But that's not what the current political leadership is breeding.
And I think you have enough evidence throughout. Both my kids live on the West Coast. They
Mhm.
left their mama, and they just to look how those different states handle it
Mhm.
at a leisure level, medical level, and all of that. Just to get information about it, you can see that it works.
Yeah.
You can see that all people eat because I think, like in my son has told me in California, you can grow like 6 plants on your personal property.
Mhm.
So but people can eat. I guess people can eat, and it's legal. It's legal.
Well, one thing that I noticed in the implementation bills up in the DC area is a lot of politicians want to jump to salivating over the tax revenues,
Yeah.
and for a lot of people, that's how they stomach it. And um, the fact is that they approach it oftentimes from the point of view of a sin tax, and we have to start out that's wrong altogether. Cannabis is not a sin,
Mhm. Right. Right. Right.
It's
For
ad valorem tax. That's what we call it. It's what it is.
Yeah.
I mean, Gary, point me if I'm wrong. Being the Christian that I am, but we borrowed from y'all's book, so I'm going to go to you as a resident Jew. In the book of Genesis, did God not give all of us all these green plants which bear seeds as food?
Yeah, Genesis 1:4, absolutely.
Aha.
Yeah, for
So
some
my
odd reason
religious minded folks out there, cannabis is not a sin from the get go.
No.
It is a gift.
Yeah.
And
I do
Robert, to your
wonder why
point,
he gave us plants before he
yeah.
gave us light. Because how else did the plants get to grow? He separated night from the day, but didn't actually give us the light until after they gave us the plants. But that's besides the point. I guess we had night
For
rooms.
cannabis growers out there, obviously God is a cannabis grower. If he's
Yeah, they probably had an LED system over there. That's what happened.
yeah, he had to get the lighting right, bro. I mean, he had to test it out. So of course he made the plants first, right?
So break it down. Break it
Now, I
down.
wanted to make a point that when we did finally have that special session, it wasn't just about cannabis. In fact, if it wasn't for the fact that they hadn't finished the school bill,
Mm-hmm.
And they had to go back for that, which was a mandate practically to finish their budget.
So they weren't even
wouldn't have had that
planning on
special
worrying.
session.
They would have kicked implementation down the road.
Absolutely. And so they're doing it their other way right now, but by slow implementing it to the point where it has taken 5 years to do what it was mandated originally to be done in 1 year, according to the constitutional amendment that we all voted for in 2016.
And we've gone through what? Now we're on our third director of the OMMU in 4 years of the DeSantis administration.
Yeah, wore those out. Got to get another Timmy.
And just quickly, so I remember when petitions were being gotten around this, right?
Mm-hmm.
And just the enthusiasm from a lot of people from all walks to get it pushed through.
71% of people voted in 2016 for it versus the 58.59, the right that close to that 60% threshold in 2014.
But what the community has to really understand is it doesn't just stop there.
Mm-hmm.
That same 71%, that same enthusiasm, there's always a step B, C, D, E to get it through and have it perfected to the way that you need it to be.
Yeah.
A lot of times people fall off because they think that that's just it, it's passed. But it's bigger than that. You have to continue, and you have to, stay around for the next step, the next step, the next step to have a conclusion to it.
Yeah,
our legislature has a terrible ability to be able to ignore the will of the voters.
Correct.
The environmental bill, they didn't get that funded properly, so they weren't buying the land right away. The bill that would allow felons to get their voting rights back.
Right.
What did it win by? Was it like 69%?
It well passed that, the threshold. I mean, also we had a wetlands one, that passed a few years ago.
Yeah.
Here's one that's prime example. We had a fair districts one that passed.
I worked on that.
Yeah. So Robin, you worked on the fair districts for that was what, 2012?
Yeah.
That's called a handoff.
And they just redistricted, and I guess they didn't decide to follow the amendments.
No, and it amazes me. So there should have been a second, third step to that to prevent what has happened now from happening. Because it was a constitutional amendment.
Mm-hmm. And the consequences of the gerrymandering and not following the redistricting that the voters demanded and asked for is now the current party in power, the Republican Party of Florida, has a supermajority in both houses, which means that there is no debate. If they are all of them one accord, which typically they are from leadership down, they have a strong farm game, if you will. They know who their leadership is going to be 8, 10, 20 years out. They have a bench. They got rotating. It's a pyramid scheme almost in their leadership.
100%.
And so, if you're on the bottom ranks, you fall in line or they'll run you out of there.
100%.
And so now they're looking to pass an amendment, a bill that we're going to have to get super majorities of voters to pass constitutional amendments. So, as voters, we've passed constitutional amendments when the legislator won't do the job that we ask them to do, that we elect them to do. And we have to pass laws ourselves. Then they get to implement these laws, and they don't implement them the way they're supposed to, or they ignore the implementation outright.
Yeah, there's always a fear that when it's created to be to appear on a petition, they water it down to attract, just like the
75 word
FRC.
limits. Yeah. Yeah.
So they knew that they couldn't get it passed if what was it? They knew something wouldn't pass if they put it on the amendment. And then that came to bite them in the end. Because now in Tallahassee, they were able to create it the way they wanted to create it. And
well, now, if you don't pay every single penny of a court cost, you actually don't get your rights restored. So, sure, you can do your time, you can do whatever requirements.
And that is so ridiculous.
But if you owe a balance in any way, shape, or form, just 1 cent, and now they're sending the goon squad after you if you end up voting. 20 people.
Yeah.
To send a green team to someone's door because they registered to vote or they voted, that is ludicrous.
But that's the loophole, because now, so if you ask someone, hey, are you a sex offender or a murderer? No. Okay, so you can vote, and you're not on probation. No, you can vote. But if you have 1 cent from that you owe from prison or a
Yeah,
court cost,
let's say
they would get you.
let's say you got thrown in jail for having 22 grams because you had it in 20. So now you got a felony. Now you're going to state prison. You may do a year. You can do up to 5 years for more than 20 grams in the state of Florida.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So how? Okay, I'll ask you later.
No, well, Robin, I mean that's one of the reasons that Carlos and I really that experience for me, looking
I
at
remember.
5 years for wanting to make sure my dad had, medicine to
Yeah.
live healthy to try and survive, and the fact that the government has a patent on utilizing cannabis to treat his specific illness. So the government knows this can help people. They have a patent on it, and yet it was illegal. And this was 2014. This was before even the First Amendment 2 had passed. And I was heartbroken when that one didn't pass. And it just, see the consequences of like how the fact that our legislature wants to put a power of the people out of reach, more than what it is. And it's like they're supposed to be our employees. They're supposed to represent us.
And that's what happens even locally. When there's an opportunity for them to put something on the ballot, send it to the people for them to vote on, they make the decision for the people, and that is so irritating to me. That's one of the reasons that I want to run, that I am running actually, because I know, not even me thinking, I know power is within the people, and they're going to make a decision that's best for them. When you're sitting up on that dais and you make that decision by saying no or not agreeing to put it on the ballot, that's problematic. The CRB, prime example.
Civilian review boards, yes.
Yeah, prime example.
Up in the DC area in Maryland right now, they're actually looking at giving all civilian review boards across the state, independent subpoena power, the ability to actually have teeth. One of the issues that I have with our board is that without subpoena power, without the ability to really have its own legal representation, the civilian review board is just a rubber stamp for the existing establishment, for the city government. So many times I've heard experiences of people having police interactions that are negative, that are never documented. So where do those people go for justice? Where can those people go for help? If you were at Gasparilla, true story, that I've heard directly from people that I know, and you're intoxicated, you walk up to an officer, ask for some help, hey, can you help me find my car? And they end up, brutally attacking you, just unprovoked, unassailed. It boggles my mind. And then there's you get an injury, you get dumped off at Tampa General, no paperwork, nothing.
Wow.
And what do you do in those cases?
And with all due respect to the media, I mean, over the last couple of days, I just turned off the news because it was Memphis 24/7.
Yeah.
And as heinous as a crime that was, it makes it seem as if it's isolated there. And it's not. There are situations like that go along all over the country, and there are good police departments that actually follow protocol and that actually utilize traffic cams as opposed to armed thugs to come over and take care of traffic issues.
Yeah. And what that showed to me also is that, so they've gotten caught. They've done it before. They've gotten caught. Those like what was the squad over here? The green squad people used to be afraid of over
on
here.
the sheriff's department, the green team. Yep.
Yeah. So even with that, they come in and they are brutal. They jack up. They do a lot of stuff to people when they're in altercations or whatever. So with Memphis, they just got caught. So they've done something similar or like this before, but they just got caught this time.
Well, and down in South Florida, the Miami area, there was a green team down there that went to the wrong house.
Oh.
They smashed in the door and they threw a flashbang in a baby's crib with a baby in it. Yeah. I mean, these are the things that happen here in Florida. Florida, in some counties, there's these zero tolerance counties. So, there's any reason. I mean, even here in Tampa, there was I remember Patty Stillman, her son was killed by the police department because a confidential informant said he was, moving weight, and they couldn't even find a nickel bag in the house when they went in there and shot him.
Yeah, and just this notation. They're identifying this as the most heinous crime that they've seen, a police brutality.
Yeah.
The worst was George Floyd, because you actually saw them kill that man in real time.
Yeah.
That was the worst.
Yeah.
That was the worst.
Yeah. I
And
mean,
then
that video is minutes
yeah,
long, 8 minutes.
intentionally, it was his intent
Yeah.
to kill that man. So that was the worst because you saw him get murdered. And my heart and condolences go out to the family of Tyree. But we have to be mindful that there's a narrative being depicted in regards to this to make this the worst. So is it the worst because it's 5 black cops that's involved with it?
It's it's the worst in the sense that we all have these social media cameras now that body cams more prevalent. But the only time I ever saw the Rodney King tape was in a constitutional law class.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like so unless you got the chance to watch it live on CNN, and you were there, like these type of things back in the day fell off. It was a quick news bit and then it's gone. And it's something you might remember, it's a meme, it's in the air,
Yeah.
but the actual watch the brutality of it, right? And see
Yeah.
how long it went on for and such.
Yeah.
So now, but though we have social media everywhere, people have no problem pulling out a camera. And that's the worst part is you would think things would get better.
Get better.
Knowing that there's
escalated.
cameras on you.
Yeah.
It shocked me when I saw there was these cops in the Baltimore area a few years back, or it might have been Boston. I remember it was a B, and I watched the video. They didn't know that their body cameras had a early report function, so it was already had a cache or recording before they pressed their button, like the 30 seconds before they pressed their button, it was recording, and it showed them a drug narcotic team planting evidence, and they were going to chase the guy down the alley, tackle him in the alley, and they put the evidence right there in the alley where they were going to arrest him, so they can blame it, and they got the whole thing on the cache, and so the fact that these cameras are running now, and these cops don't care. I heard those cops on the camera, hey, I was dropping those beams on them.
So what? So and I laugh. It's not a joking moment, but cops are out of shape. They were more pissed off that they had to run after that man. They out of shape. And he was getting away, little small young man. But I would wonder how many reports. So people want you to stop in this moment, and they are outlining that they're handling everything. But how many reports prior to this that chief or that police department received about the brutality of this unit? How can those people gain some type of consolation to it, or some type of get acknowledged about it, because it happened before this.
Yeah,
before it happened to that young
leadership
man.
And leadership is always accountable.
100%.
The buck stops. It's a chain of failure is the sad part. Like, where does the buck start? Well, the buck stops all the way at the mayor's office, right?
Yeah.
The mayor determines who the police chief
100%.
is, and the police chief sets the culture in the department. The under chiefs have a lot to say, so all the way down to the lieutenants and the street sergeants. And we have a history in our own media here locally of reporting on the corruption within the DUI unit in this department. It's common knowledge of corruption and abuse, like you said, on the green team and the sheriff's office. And so if you grow up in Tampa, you know these things, and it's not new to people. And it's something that people live with, and it shouldn't. Like, we should have leadership that's willing to address it. One of the things that always struck me the most was when Jane Castor first became police chief. I went to an event and spoke with her, met her, and I asked her, I said, what are you going to do to clean up the department? And her response was, I have no bad cops. And the worst part about that is that when I pulled out from that event, I got pulled over because the cop almost rear-ended me. He was speeding without his lights on, and I had to go to court over a ticket that he gave me because he was mad because,
oh my God.
Yeah. And it's like, it was so ironic, like almost like divine providence. Like, that was just showing me where that is.
Where it is.
And
outside, we have a situation where right now we have a civil citation bill that it was implemented that gives police discretion. Now, where does discretion come? Discretion comes from their own experiences,
100%,
as well as the kind of pressure they get from their supervisor to follow through all these various instances. Now, if the supervisors are saying, constantly de-escalate, then they would have a chance to de-escalate. But if they say it's okay to escalate as long as you get this, and this done, do it any way you want, that is not going to work out. And there are good police out there that are actually out there like the walking wounded. They have seen things that they can't unsee. Many
Right.
of them are actually out there on the streets with PTSD, and they get triggered by various things. And you can actually tell by the way they suddenly jump into action. It might not necessarily be even them involved. And so I've had a conversation with Sheriff Cronister about this, asking, what do you do for your officers, for your first responders in regards to PTSD? He says, well, we have yoga, we have acupuncture, we have meditation, and then of course there's these occasional drug program or there's cognitive therapy. None of these things work.
Yeah, I mean, 8 free sessions on an EAP, that the sheriff's office provides through their health insurance is not in no way, shape, or form the proper route for. You're right, Gary, for the post traumatic stress that you know first responders see. I mean, you even in the bills that we've worked on have made carve outs that first responders should have access to medical cannabis when they're off duty, right?
Yes, off duty and not on call.
Oh wow.
And I think if we just did a study on that, we could verify it, because there have been other studies in other counties, other cities, where we show that it does work.
So
but you have to have the city council, everybody else to be open for that.
so when this bill was created and approved,
No, the bill hasn't been approved. Gary and I have been working on legislation now
oh
to expand qualifying conditions. We're currently one of the biggest things we've been pushing is employment protections for public employees. And in that, there should be a carve out to allow first responders who are not on duty to utilize it. They're public employees. They deserve the right to every other medicine any other, citizen should have. And if that's the thing, is that this still is not treated like medicine by the government, regardless of what it says on paper. And so we see it in policing and enforcement. One of the bills that they passed in Virginia that I'm working on in Maryland is to eliminate odor as probable cause for a search. If you can take one more tool out of the toolbox that it leads to any excuse to escalate the situation, right? So if cops smelled cannabis in this state, it shouldn't be a reason to have to bother you.
right.
That just should be
I agree
normal.
with that, especially in the direction that it's headed, because I don't smoke, but my sons. So if I get in their car, automatically I'm going to smell it. So me as a mom, I'm like, you know, what if you? Same question. What if you're stopped?
Mhm.
All they have to do is smell it. But if uh, if it's not illegal, so California is real different though, because they don't.
Well, here's a good prime example.
They
Carlos
don't.
sells legal products right here in the shop. I was, at gas bars the other night, and I was smoking one of these, and then everybody's walking up to me, the security, you can't smoke that. You can't smoke. I was like, why not? It's legal. I bought it next door. Here's a receipt. And then, after, they de-escalated the situation. Those are private security guards, but I guarantee you, if those are TPD officers, look at this. This is legal. This is just sitting here on the desk here.
So what's that?
This is cannabis.
A herb, a hemp fly. So okay.
So for those who are not well versed in congressional farm politics, right? That's really it's so esoteric. But in 2018, Congress authorized their farm bill, and in that they said that any hemp products or hemp plants that have less than 0.3% THC by weight. Okay, THC 9 being the psychoactive chemical in cannabis that gives you that blissful and euphoric feeling. If you have less than 0.3%, it is actually not marijuana. It's not an illegal drug. It is an agricultural commodity. And so that caused a boom. And Nikki Fried, as the former commissioner of agriculture, actually encouraged it, allow for hemp-based businesses to Florida to apply for licenses to become regulated. We have over 7,300 hemp businesses licensed in this state that are currently regulated in the state of Florida. And Carlos's shop here is just one of them. But I mean, if a cop, a TPD officer, saw this in your car, saw this in the bag, I mean, what does it look? Do just for you, you'd be like, hey, what?
Yeah.
Let me see that.
Yeah.
You can't have that. But no, this is totally legal. It's sold here. So there has to be changes in the law as the culture changes and as other laws change. And so, Robin, that's why I'm glad you're here, because even you're learning right
I'm
now.
learning right now.
You know, and I think that's vital. Our elected officials should understand the greater ramifications of these systems. Smell shouldn't be it smells like great bud.
Yeah. Oh, that's
In
it.
fact, at one of the shows we went to, maybe about 2 or 3 years ago, there was a guy selling little tiny things you hang on your dashboard, like the Christmas trees.
Uh-huh.
Only it's not a Christmas tree.
Yeah,
It's
it's
a
Delta
cannabis
8.
leaf, and it actually is infused with terpenes, so it'll smell, like an open jar of bud.
Mhm.
And I said, that is not a good idea, because at this point in time, they're still saying that smell, even if they don't smell it, is considered probable cause.
Yeah.
And we haven't gotten rid of that. We also haven't gotten rid of the idea of having a medical card being probable cause to take kids away from you if they feel that their kids are in danger because of the fact that you have a medical card.
Yeah.
And that is one of the bills we're working on right now for this session, is that if you have a medical card, unless you can prove some kind of nexus between your cannabis use and abuse, then there should not be the DCF coming on out and grabbing your kids and taking them to a foster facility.
Right.
Well, Gary, I want to pause on this issue for a moment. I'm Robin. Apologies for not staying on the local politics, but I think it's relevant in the sense that it's happening in our local hospitals here in Tampa. It's happening across the country. Is that pregnant women who test positive for cannabis are going to be charged with child abuse or child endangerment?
they are.
They'll have their kids taken away from them, and if this is a legal medicine in the state, if a doctor says to a woman, hey, your morning sickness is uncontrollable, or hey, you're pregnant, the pain you're having, you're high risk, you need to reduce your stress. And if medical cannabis is the treatment that they feel is, the right one that does the least harm, then that should be allowed in this state, and that should be protected.
Because they're getting information from the professional, the doctor.
But despite the fact that we have, Gary, close to almost 40 medical marijuana states, less than 4 actually protect pregnant women's rights.
Really?
And in this state, we're looking at 9 out of 10 women who are tested for THC are women of color. There's a disproportionate number in just the testing.
I didn't even know that.
Black and brown women are being tested carte blanche in our hospitals for cannabis use.
So you remember Governor Scott's rule that anybody who applied for
and the Rick Scott rule, anybody who applies for public assistance in Florida has to cast the P negative for cannabis.
And 97% of the people who were tested negative.
Yeah.
Wow.
And that's, again, goes back to the public employees. We got teachers that are getting hurt on the job, assistant principals that break up fights. And then, the doctor says, oh, your pain management. Well, you can go on opioids and put you on cannabis. Utilize cannabis, they come back to work, they test for cannabis, now they're losing their jobs. And Ron DeSantis is doing nothing to stop that. As a matter of fact, the bills that we've had time and time again on this, Gary, what are we on now? Year number 4 trying to get this passed?
Year number 4, and it'll be the second year that it was filed too.
Because when I left for DC was the first year that we worked on it with Polsky when she was a representative. Now she's our Senate sponsor. And shout out to Representative Angie Nixon, who's going to help us with it in the House this year.
Oh, that's good. Angie's good.
Yeah, and I think that just the fact that even someone like Angie, who's an ally, I went to her policy night to pitch it to her, because I don't think our politicians know. If we don't, as a people, speak up and be like, hey, the job's not done, we're getting left behind.
Correct.
And
that's why I say they have to pay attention to not just the initial movement, but what's plan B, what's plan C, and you have to stay there throughout.
Yeah.
That's even here in local government. You have to stay, one thing about other communities, they have a plan, they map it out, and they move it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So we have to, do the same thing and just stay throughout the for the continuance of it. Continue it, because it's not done when it's not initially done when it's passed.
Yeah.
I have a question in regards to your civil citations. Yeah. Do you get reports in regards to how many people were arrested around the civil citation, or
no? No, as a matter of fact, this morning, in anticipation of the episode here and with our city council episodes, I did as much search as I could and could not come up with where, either on the TPD website. I went to the city of Tampa council's website, went to the mayor's office website, and just Googling in general. I mean, yeah, I could find the ordinance. Here it is here, right? But where's the reporting on the back end, right?
So was it requested for it to be reporting to be provided?
I remember in the council hearings, they wanted to make sure that I remember Councilman Miranda was very vocal about wanting to see on the back end. And no, there's nothing here specifically in the ordinance that demands that there's, reports carried and such. But every citation issued by the by the police department, it has to have some type of tracking.
Yeah.
There is reporting through the county and through the
clerk of the court's office,
state law enforcement agency, but not on the city level. And I put that on the city manager.
Well, we don't have a city manager. There's a strong mayor system.
Yeah.
The buck stops at the mayor's office, Gary.
Yeah.
But that goes back to the important part of this is that the accountability on the back end, like you said, Robin. We need to know and look at the demographics, because when I was advocating for the civil citation ordinance in Lakeland, and I looked at their 2015 statistics, they had 401 marijuana arrests in the city of Lakeland. 201 were black men. 50% of all arrests were from 6% of the population.
Mm-hmm.
Now, as a social scientist, those numbers are egregious.
Oh, right.
You don't even need to run, cross tabs and analysis to be like, that's some bullshit.
Something's wrong.
We're talking about Polk County, where my goodness, Bartow, most of the people of color are actually cows. Actual cows.
Case in point, Gary, is that there. I remember at the ordinance hearing when the police chief was called on that, he was like, "Well, those are just high crime areas. That's where it happens."
And Polk County has statistics.
Yeah, Lakeland keeps the stats on because that was
in Hillsburg. So you shouldn't even have to ask, because this is such a special issue, right? Because not everybody agrees with it. A lot of people do agree with it, but how do you maintain whether it's working or not?
Yeah, can we get some transparency? Can we get some
100%.
uploads on the city website?
Yeah.
For various statistics like arrests, like our crime stats. It almost seems like the current city hall wants to control the flow of information. And that's one of the reasons why they continue to fight for accountability on the civilian review boards.
Yeah.
Well, maybe if we get a good picture of a graphic and blow it up and put it on a foam core, then Sheriff Grady Judd might actually look at it and show it to other people, because he loves taking a look at those pictures with the foam core.
Oh man, I that's the thing too, is like, it shouldn't require us to have political theater at city council hearings to get the job done. I remember just the fact that, like, good policy should be good policy. Awesome. Our city council members, we should be able to empower them and trust them to do right by us. Robin, you're running for city council, obviously, because you don't agree with the way our incumbents who on the council have been governing things. And you have incumbents now running from district seats to citywide seats who want to represent everybody in the city. And tell us a little bit about some of those decisions that have been made that you disagree with, you would have done differently.
Oh, the primary one has been rent stabilization. We've been working on rent stabilization for about a year. And when it came time to, when we got all, Orlando Goose actually made the motion to, hey, let's do this. Mm-hmm. And we got a unanimous vote. Bill Carlson was the only one. And he told me straight up front, so I respect Bill. He said he couldn't support it.
Why is that?
He just didn't think that it would work. So he didn't think that was the correct route. But our goals.
So tell me about the rent stabilization. How much would it cap rent increases on?
5%.
5%.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Because I know folks who've been waiting for a year to get into Encore and they still can't get in.
Robin,
not even certain they can afford it.
Let me tell you a story right now. I'm working on some rent stabilization stuff myself back in the DC area, and we're actually pushing for the rent stabilization ordinance because rent went up 5%. And the rent stabilization in Tampa here is 5%. I mean, folks, I want to break this down to you. If your rent is $2,000 a year, a a 5% increase, it will be $100 a month on you. That's $1,200 more dollars a year. And that is pushing working families out of the city, out of the county, because they can't afford those type of rent prices. And that's the cap that you all are pushing. And these city council members wouldn't support it. Right now, I'm pushing the cap for 1.4%. I think maybe $25 a year on a month on a rent increase.
It's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
It really is. It's a no-brainer. So Bill said, no. And hey, he has his constituents that he deals with. They have rental problems, but that was his decision.
Okay.
But at least he was upfront with me, and so I respect that. But still was trying to push him, and so we had 5-1. Charlie Miranda, who's the person that's been on council forever.
1972.
That's anyhow. He let's shake the tree and let's do this.
Yeah.
So it was unanimous outside of Bill. And what they were doing was for the first reading. So everything was in motion. The day the first reading came,
Okay.
they bulked.
How many bulked?
All of them except for Lynn Hertech and Orlando Goose.
So we went from a 5-1
to a 4-2.
Wow.
A 5-2.
Wow.
Now,
Yeah. And the I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
The rent stabilization, because of Florida law, would have only been for a year.
Yeah.
So my thought was, wow.
So they had to go back and renew it again the following
Yes.
year.
Yes.
I mean, we're looking at the one I'm pushing is 5 years.
But see, Florida law, when they're doing something like that, or an ordinance is created, or whenever the people vote on something, they've just passed a law, I think like maybe 2 years ago, that you have to go back and do it again, again, to discourage people from doing it. But it would have capped the rent for a year after the community had a year worth of high rent.
Yeah.
500-600, getting calls. My rent just went up $1,000. I can't pay that. My rent just my rent just went up $500. I can't pay that. So it was a solution. It would have only lasted a year.
And there's also the issue of bad landlords. That is rampant
100. Oh my God.
State. I mean, I've stayed at places where you go the whole lease and they don't fix anything.
Oh my God.
And then they jack the rent up for the next person coming behind you. And I mean, I remember when I was an intern in Rep Shanti's office, and there was an issue with an apartment complex didn't pay the water bill, and so everybody had their water shut off.
Oh my God!
Even though they paid their rent, they pay their water fees on the rent.
That's another thing that infuriated me. And just one more thing about the rent stabilization, they weren't passing it; they were providing the community. It was going to be on the ballot for the community.
Yeah, to let the people vote on it.
Yeah, to let the people vote
so they could even absolve themselves.
100%. 100%.
This is a touchy issue. Let the people decide if they want to regulate.
100%. 100%.
Wow.
Our landlords, same thing.
So do we have city council men or do we have jellyfish? Because there sounds to be a lack of spines up there behind the dais.
Listen, they have these conversations and these meetings that change their vote. When I was very consistent in mobilizing people down to city council, affected people, impacted people, and they come and pour their hearts out to city council, and you hear the woes and the was and the, hey, contact my aide, it's the grandstanding. Get my aid, and nothing happens when it's time for them to vote.
Vote. You know what the aid's gonna do? Give them 211. Here, you should call this number.
Yeah.
Don't call us.
Yeah, 211 doesn't get updated any more than once every couple of years, and I blame the I blame the organization in regards to that. But that list is just outdated, and most of those things don't even operate anymore.
Yeah.
But that's what we have to do now. Robin, I was mentioned before that we have several layers of government we constantly have to deal with. We have the federal government who supersedes all the states. And because we are a federalist country, we have states' laws and states' rules that our own legislature works on. And then we have the local folks who oftentimes get usurped by the state laws, and yet they do try to create new local ordinances to get around that. And then you have a layer just below that. A lot of people don't consider a part of government, but they really are. And I'm talking about the neighborhood organizers, the NGOs, like NextGen, like even the NAACP working in congruence with the neighborhoods and urban league and things of that sort. And that is basically the area that you're coming from when you're coming towards the state. So that is why I'm interested in seeing what you could possibly do for the city council based on the background of the kind of groups that you've been working with.
Organize them. Show them what I mean, because that's what it is, right? If you're supposed to, so city council is supposed to be the check and balance for the mayor, administration.
Yep.
The people are the check and balance for city council. I'm in the community. So in regards to creating a pulse of the community, and I want to bring community to politics. Just what I was doing, right? Because I think I know once they're brought to politics, they and seen in the chambers, they will make a decision, follow up on a decision that is best for them. So we need the community to be a check and balance and be involved, because that's been intentional for them not to have that. They say they like people in the chamber, but they really don't, because now they're able to pass things. But how do you make force city council to be in the communities of the people that they serve, to really gain a pulse of the community in which they serve?
Well, Robin, I think the Tampa City Council for a long time has lacked, you know, a significant number of voices from the community. Tampa is a very diverse city.
100%.
There's a lot of different communities, a lot of different voices. But then if you look at the makeup of the council, it was all men up
Yeah.
until just a few months ago.
Yeah.
And then, Lynn Turtak got appointed to the council. But we invited Dr. Sonia Brookins on the show last week. You're running in a different district. You're running citywide in which
Correct.
district?
District 2.
In District 2. And so, understanding that there have been no black women voices on the council since
Gwen Miller.
since Les Miller's wife
Yeah.
was on there.
Yeah.
And that is a voice. I think your voice in itself, being a mother, being a grandmother, that's a voice that we need on the council. Someone who brings a different perspective than businessmen who don't pay their bills, or people who are in bed with special interest groups that are more about making a buck rather than doing what's right by the people. And I mean, too often that's what we're seeing.
All right. My whole career, I guess is that what I would call it, in regards to community. I've always wanted to, when I was the president of the Black Caucus, my goal there was to bring information to the community so they can make sound decisions. I got, tired of us electing friends, but all those people that are friends of mine, if you think I'm qualified, then I want your support, right? But we have to be able to make sound decisions on who we want to represent us, and what the expectation is, because a lot of times the communities have an expectation that is not doable, but they don't understand government.
Mm.
So how do I bring that information to you to say, no, that's not, that's school board.
Yeah.
No, that's county commission.
Mm-hmm.
So
Or
I want
state
to
legislature.
correct.
Yeah.
Correct. So that's my goal in regards to bringing community to back to politics. Because at one time they were in politics.
Well, the fact that you're so community organized minded, it means that we know that your constituent services at your office will actually be
100%.
serving people, because
100%.
too often elected officials have poor constituent services, and
Yeah.
that was something that really bothered me. In my lifetime, when my mom needed help, and you go to your congressperson's office and they tell you they can't do nothing for you,
Right.
that will eat you up inside. You think, wow,
100%.
we elect people for help. When you go to help, you can't get it. And too often, it just boggles my mind that people are more interested in just wearing the suits, going to the fancy lunches with the consultants.
No.
No,
I have been of the people, and I've been fortunate enough to amplify their voice.
Yeah.
But I amplify their voice and empower them to speak for themselves, but I bring them with me. So that's been my lifelong journey. And, I'll do the same with city council. Uh, you know, uh, there's a lot of things wrong, but I think that the biggest thing also is that city council does not look at things with the lens of equity. And that's problematic for me.
Mm. Well,
And we have a
Robin,
problem with social equity in the entire cannabis program here in the state. I mean, if you look at the people who own the licenses, they are not people of color, and
Oh no.
we actually have one this dispensary actually owned by somebody who is a Mexican background, but who also happens to be a millionaire rapper. So that really does not go into the purview of social equity, where you have to take care of the people who've been disproportionately disadvantaged by things like having felonies on their record when it should never be there and can't seem to get it off, kind of situation.
Yeah,
mm,
yeah. And another thing is that I just want to see people win. I think that just because something has always been a certain way, life evolves. So life should be evolving. We may have done it this way for 50 years. That's just how the way it's done. But no, can you wonder differently than what you were taught? Even wonder, I'm not even telling you to think about it. Can you wonder, even imagine something different before you start thinking about it? Because hopefully, if you think about it, you'll start wanting to do it or make a change.
I mean, Robin, you said some real thing, right? The people have been taking the L for far too long in this
Yeah.
country. When we look at the war on drugs, in particular, our issue with the war on drugs is cannabis being illegal, but just the war on drugs in general is a war on the American people, and it's the longest running war this government has conducted, and it's conducted at every level. So when we look at these issues that we have in policing, and always talk about the militarization of the police, it's called a war.
It's called the war.
You're in war. There are war crimes committed. There are violations of civil rights that happen, and that should not be happening in our streets and in our neighborhoods. It shouldn't be happening in places where we eat and shop.
100%.
I mean, I know too many veterans who risked life, limb, and bled for freedoms that you come home and just aren't there.
And that's so if you are a public servant and you risk your life, I think when you've served your time, like if even in the military, I think when they come home from combat, their house should be paid off. You know, they've served that time and risked that life.
Yeah, we have like some property tax exemptions, but like in the state of Florida, they still have not passed the bill to give veterans free medical marijuana ID cards.
Wow.
That was something that I know.
And that's very, very serious too.
Yeah.
That really is. PS
PTSD.
PTSD. Yes.
But it's not just post traumatic stress. People come back with battlefield injuries that cause chronic pain, that cause panic attacks. I know I have friends who you can't take them to Disney. Those long lines
Oh, yeah.
and because they were in situations where you can't trust any human being. You don't know who's an adversary.
Wow.
When
Yeah,
you're in
we,
hostile
we, yeah,
territory.
we had another ordinance this last election in regards to giving property tax breaks to veterans, and
Mhm.
I say that's all well and good, but that's like dipping your toe in the lake and expecting the entire tides to come on in. It
Right.
doesn't work that way because there's a lot of vets who don't have a home that they own, who
100.
can't pay for the rent that they're actually told to pay right
Yeah.
now. Those are the people in greater need than those people who need to get a break on their property taxes.
Right.
With all due
Right.
respect.
No, you're risking a limb, and especially when if you come back not the way you went. That's serious because you couldn't even just mentally so yeah, I think that things, just because they were done a certain way, that's the foundation, but it does not mean that you can't pivot or go to. When I took over Black Caucus,
Mhm.
I thank Dr. Miles, God bless his soul, and I thank Diane Hart. I said, I thank y'all for the foundation,
Mhm.
but now I'm pivoting. I'm headed in a different direction, but I got the foundation already there. So in life, I just want people to win, not take advantage.
Mhm.
Not take advantage, but have the opportunity to be prosperous in this life.
I mean, those are our core values, right? Life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness. And if those are the core values of this country, then we need government to reflect those values, and we need government to cherish them and protect them. and the way we see government treat people and constituents as adversaries many
Mhm.
times, the will of the people becomes adversarial when you have a different agenda. And so, Robin, it's refreshing to see someone like yourself running. We need more organizers, in public office, in public life, and so often that's not what we see. And if you look at the net worths of folks and how things shake out, it's very difficult. We have members of Congress right now that want to limit what you can buy on the food stamp program. There's
Well,
members of
Daniel Eagles, that bill, yeah.
yeah, there's members of Congress who want to pass a 30% across the board sales tax and then do away with corporate taxes and payroll taxes.
Yeah.
Well, we are
And
coming up on the top of the hour here, Robin. But I would like to hear for one night. You're an at-large position you're going for, so anybody in the city of Tampa can vote for you. So
Correct.
to those folks who haven't had a chance to meet you before, give us a bit of your stump speech and what they can do to help out your campaign.
Okay, so I want to thank you both for having me. It's been a learning exercise, so I look forward to learning more. But my name is Robin Lockett, and I am running citywide. I am from Tampa. Went to the greatest high school in Tampa, Tampa Bay Tech. Go Titans!
I, I would say that Hillsborough High School would
No, no.
respectfully disagree.
Go Titans! And I want to be your representative. I have been in the trenches. I represent people. I represent people with issues, and I have a track record to prove it. My issues are affordable housing, quality, water quality, and accountability. Accountability is very, very important to me because I think everyone has to be accountable to somebody. So if you want to assist, I have volunteer opportunities available, and also I have we raising money, so donations. Visit my website www.voterobinlockett.com. And this is not I didn't plan this a year ago. I theoretically jumped in and decided probably I was thinking about it before the holidays and I made a decision as of the new year. So my son told me when I asked my kids, I have two boys, Cedric and Xavier, do you think I should do this? And one of my kids, I call them my kids. One of my sons told me, he said, you got to be the change that you want to see.
Mm.
And you've done the work, and that's why I'm here, because I looked over the course of my work and I have done the work, and I want to represent people, but I want to bring I want people to be accountable, and that's on both ends. I want city council to be accountable to the people, and I want the people to be accountable for the city. I mean to city council. So it's a two-way street. I want to bring community back to politics. So thank you.
Well,
So this is
Robin,
not an ad hoc candidacy. It's more of a continuation of your life's work and an escalation
100%.
and the logical next step. Because I actually wrote a paper about 10 years ago, 15 years ago now, which basically stated one of the best possible candidates for president would be somebody who started out as a community organizer. If only we could have somebody like that to get into office, right?
yeah, we need more folks
Yes.
in office from the community. I can validate. I've been in the trenches with Robin for many years now. We would not have the change that we've seen in this county in a lot of ways without Robin. For those of you who don't know how hard she works behind the scenes, the network that she's built of people out in the community that get out there time and time again and help push various initiatives, whether it's, like you said, you advocating for clean water. I mean, nothing irritates me more than to think that we have members of our city government that really want to sell out our water supply, that want
Oh
to
my
dump
God.
shitty water into the water that we drink and shower with. I mean, and all for what? For a few bucks on the back end, for tax dollars that they probably are blowing it
When
elsewhere.
I heard about that, I was like, "What?
Yeah, it's nuts.
What?"
It's nuts. I mean, the privatization of so many city services. In my time at
That's a
USF in
shame.
the public administration program, we examined many of those, and time and time again, the results came back. You're actually spending more money on privatization
That's
because
quality.
you have less quality, and then you have to go on the back end and try and make up for it if you even do. And so the shortcomings that we're seeing I'm glad that we have someone from the community who recognizes them and is willing to step up and do something about it. So, Robin, you have my full support in everything that you're doing. And so, everyone, please go to Robin Lockett, voteRobinLockett.com. Robin's running for city council, and this is the type of candidate that we need to have elected here in the city of Tampa to represent us. We need the perspective that Robin brings to the council. And so, as we close out, we just want to pay the bills real quick and let everybody know that suncoastnormal.org, our homepage, is where you can get the information that you need. You can catch up on past episodes of the rotation, but we cannot do this without each and every one of you. So, if you've already joined Suncoast Normal, come down to Chillum here on East 7th Avenue, pick up your membership card and membership pin. Otherwise, for $25 a year, it goes a long way to pushing our legislative agenda and educating, members of the community, even our elected officials, like Robin here, who's running for office. And so, that coming up is our lobby days. So check out our website, join us in Tallahassee. Gary will be there to help pull everything off and make the connections with these elected officials. And so, as you can see, Gary Stein being the best unpaid activist ever, I want to actually change that. So if you would go on to our Patreon page and become a Patreon member and support, or go to our homepage and donate, it would go a long way. But of course, we want to make sure that we can continue to work for you all in pushing what you want to see happen when it comes to cannabis in the state of Florida, when it comes to protecting your civil rights. And we're going to continue in our city council series to be bringing on future candidates for Tampa City Council as we head into these March elections. So, Robin, we wish you the best with everything, and we thank you for jumping into rotation. You're welcome back anytime.
Thank you. I enjoyed myself. Great conversation.
Indeed.
And one more thing I want to bring up: if somebody could possibly do this, somebody has to tell the city council and the folks over there that eminent domain does not mean you pave over old cemeteries. With all due respect, this has been creeping me out for years. We're constantly finding cemeteries under schools, under businesses. It's like, who the heck paved over it in the first place? And why don't they know that it's there?
Unregulated greed. Unregulated greed that didn't care.
Well, Robin, before we go, there's a concern of mine that I have. I remember there were some signs that popped up. Woodlawn Cemetery, Showman's Rest, right there off of North Boulevard and MLK. That cemetery, I was looking. The city was interested in selling off, some land there that has to do with that. My family's buried there, and selling off, for whatever private reason or contractor. Like, we need to be protecting our cemeteries.
100. I totally agree with that.
And so I just wanted to bring that attention to the folks that, in this fight, understanding that the status quo, the powers that be, it may be possibly even some of the people that might be running against you have supported this. And that's some old bullshit as far as I'm concerned, as my father would say. So for those of you who don't know, my father, towards the end of his life, as he struggled through it, I'll never forget. I was in a debate. I was running for chairman of the local Democratic Party. And my opponent got up and said something. And my father, without a filter, because, that's part of the disease, he goes, "That's some old bullshit." That's some bullshit. And my mom had to escort him out of the room, but it was hilarious because he could still call it. He could tell what it was.
Smelling a mile away.
Smelling a mile away. And so as I'm sitting here, Robin, you smell nothing but flowers. And I'm so excited to actually have someone with a breath of fresh air and truth running for Tampa City Council.
A long time.
So we support you. And look, check us out in the rotation each and every Sunday. We appreciate y'all. We'll continue to bring you great guests. Download the rotation podcast on Spotify and every other Pandora, SoundCloud, Amazon, iTunes. And then, of course, we can't do this without you. So please join them when we become a member of Suncoast Normal. And we will catch everybody next week in the rotation.